Welcome back to HANA Basics for Developers. In the previous video, we had our first look at calculation views, and we focused on a simpler calculation view that did a basic join using the dimension type. We did look at how we could do text join and get language-dependent text in our view. Now we want to move on to a more powerful scenario. We're going to use a cube data type in our calculation view and use that to have a view that has aggregation in it. We want to take our purchase order data and do aggregates, summation on the amount columns. And the real challenge here is going to be the fact that we have global data, so we have amounts in different currencies. And of course, it wouldn't make any sense to take $2 and add it together with €2. That would just give us nonsense data. So one of the things we're going to have to do is convert all the amounts to a common currency before it can be aggregated together. And this currency conversion is something that is a real strong point of calculation views. It's got some built-in functionality to make it very easy to do this currency conversion that we're going to need to do here. So let's go back over to the Web IDE and pick up pretty much where we left off here with our models. We've got our products from the previous exercise. Let's create a new calculation view. And let's name it Purchase Orders. And we can give it a label. With currency conversion. And we want it to be a cube data type with a star join. So we'll go ahead and say create. And kind of like I did before, let's move things around a little bit. Give us a little more space. So what we want to do is we need a join node to start off, just like we had done in the previous calculation view. So let's go ahead and grab a join and add it in here. And in this join node, we want to take the purchase order header and the purchase order item tables. So let's take PO header and PO item. And then, of course, we want to create a join from purchase order ID to purchase order ID. And this is starting from the header, this would be a one to many. So for every one header record, there could be one or more items. And now we need to do some mapping here. We don't want all the columns once again. We want to trim these down. So from the header table, we just need our purchase order ID and our last changed at date. So we'll add those two. And then from the item table, what do we want here? We want the product ID, we want the currency, and we want the gross amount. So we'll add those in. And that is the basis of our view. So we'll take that, our good purchase order data, we'll add it to the star join. And then we want to add to the star join, we want the, oops, helps if I can spell, we want the calculation view from our previous exercise. And you see here how we can use calculations to build one on top of the other. So this has all of our good product data with supplier details, address, descriptions. So we don't need to re-add all those tables and recreate those joins. We'll just pull in that view and join it together with the purchase order data. So we'll give that a second to pull in the details. And here we can take the product ID from our purchase order item and bring it over here to the product ID, which was essentially the key of our other view, and we'll say one-to-one relationship. That's good. And that's pretty much what we want here. Now the only thing is, we know we want currency conversion. So let's go ahead and add an input parameter that can be passed into our view to tell us what we want our target currency to be. So, if I'm running this in Europe, I might want everything converted to euros, but if I'm running it in the US, I might want everything converted to US dollars. So we will create a new input parameter, and let's name this input parameter IP_O target currency. Give it a label, target currency for currency conversion. And we will make it mandatory because it wouldn't make sense to aggregate the data without a target currency. It can be a direct type. Let's see, it is a currency, and varchar 3. And we can go ahead and add a default value. It's not necessary, but we know that maybe our business is mostly in the US, even though we sell in other currencies, or we purchase in other currencies. So let's go ahead and set the default to US dollars. And that's good enough for our input parameter. Oops, I didn't mean to close that whole thing there. There we are. So there's our input parameter. Now we want to go to our mapping. And from the mapping, let's take our join, and actually we want all the columns, and we will add those to the output. And actually what we want to do here, so we can really test and make sure that our currency conversion is happening, we're going to take the gross amount and we're going to send it over here again. And as I said, this is sort of for education, so that we can see what the gross amount was in the original currency, and that's what I'll rename this one to, original gross amount. And then we can have one that gets converted, so we can see that there really is a difference. Okay, so you notice I'm just saving periodically as I go along here. That's kind of just habit. It's not like it's putting anything in the database when I save, but it's not a bad idea to make sure that you don't lose any data here. So what I want to do, I come to the semantics. And we didn't do much with the semantics in the last exercise. We didn't have any aggregation. But one thing I want to do here is it looks at the data types of the columns, and it tries to guess what kind of aggregation that you might want. And yes, it makes sense for us to summarize the gross amounts, but it actually doesn't make any sense to summarize the purchase order ID. It is a numeric column. That's why the system thought it should summarize it. But it's a unique ID that represents our purchase order. So we definitely don't want to do that. So we want to change this. Instead of a measure, we want to turn it back into an attribute, and then it won't try to apply any aggregation to that column. Okay? Next, we want to come here to the gross amount column. And this is the one that we want to apply a currency conversion to. So we can start the process of the currency conversion by assigning it a semantic. And you see there are some built-in semantics, either a quantity with a unit of measure. That's another type of conversion that's pretty common that you might have to do. If you have foot and meter, you can't add those two things together either. You would have to convert them to a common unit of measure and then aggregate them. Say just like the currency situation that we have here. But we'll go ahead and choose amount with currency code. And then this takes us into the configuration screen to configure the currency conversion, because there's lots of different options as to the way that we could do the currency conversion. So I want to say that that we do want a display column. We'll come back there. We'll say that we want a conversion. We want to account for decimal shifts, because certain currencies use decimals different ways, like the Japanese yen. We don't want rounding. That's all good there. It automatically looked at our target container and it saw that we had currency conversion tables in it. So it pulled those in here. That this T-cur R, T-cur V. This is where our actual rates are. And this was all imported in the last exercise at the beginning when we downloaded that zip file and brought it into our project. It created these currency conversion tables and loaded some data in them. Now I will say up front, I've only put currency rates for US dollars and euros in the sample data. I did not put all currencies, and this currency data is a little old. I don't constantly update the currency rates on the sample data, so over time currencies shift in value. So don't be alarmed if maybe the rates seem off, maybe the conversions seem weird. It's just the test data that we're dealing with here. But now we have to come over here to the definition. So the currency conversion tables have a client column that came from the ABAP world, Mandant, client. So we had to tell it which client to look at, and in our data that's client 001. That's where everything is configured. And our source currency, we want to get that from a column. We already know the source currency. It's there in the data, so we can just choose it here from the columns. Currency 1, that's going to pull in for each record what its source currency is. And the conversion date, obviously rates change daily. We don't want to put a fixed in. That wouldn't be as accurate. We know what date, so let's use a column here. And let's get the last change date and use that as the date of the currency conversion. Data type is fine, decimal. We want to generate a new column. That's fine. We want the exchange rate type to be fixed. There's many different exchange rate types, and I'm no expert here on the various different types, average exchange rate, historical exchange rates, and things like that. I fully admit I just always use 1001 current exchange rate. You'd probably have to talk to more of a business expert on currency conversion, probably someone from the finance department, to get a better breakdown of what those different exchange rate types are. So for our educational purposes, we're just going to go with 1001 there. And then our target currency, we also don't want to have a fixed target currency. We want the person running the report to be able to specify their target currency at runtime. So that's where we're going to use that input parameter that we created. So we'll get dynamic conversion there, and then what do we want to do when there's a failure? Which there will be failures, because remember I told you my data only has euros to dollars and dollars to euros, but yet our purchase order data has other currencies in it. It's got some Japanese yen and a couple others. I don't even remember what all of them were. We don't want it to fail because we don't want the report to cancel running. So we'll just say ignore, because we know our data has that we don't have enough currency exchange rates for all the data. So we'll just ignore any errors there. Okay. That all looks good. I'm just double checking to make sure I didn't make any input errors here. Yeah, that looks very good. So we'll say OK. And that will add the currency conversion to that column. And essentially, we're done with our view now. So we can go ahead and save. And we will build our database module. So we'll get a runtime version of this view so we can go test it. One modified file, it's built successfully, that's good. So we go back over to the Database Explorer. I might as well close the design time version. And what we see now, in addition to our products, we have our purchase orders. Now, don't be thrown off. I didn't mention this in the previous exercise. When you come into the Database Explorer, you're actually seeing all these sort of intermediary generated artifacts for the actual calculation view. Again, I'm not an expert in this topic. I've never really found out why we get all of these things showing up here. Um, you know, whether it's where you could do some intermediate testing or something there. I always just go straight to the object with the base name and test it. That's obviously what you would want to interact with directly. And once again, we're just going to say the open data. But you notice we get a different screen now. It doesn't go directly into showing us the results. It took us to a screen where we had to fill in the input parameter. And it defaulted in our US dollars as we asked it to. It knows it's a currency type. So we'll go ahead and leave it with US dollars, and we'll say open the content. And once again, we'll come over here first to the raw data to look at this. And what we will see here is, yes, we have some euros that we're going to convert to US dollars, so that when you come over here, so look, the first two records are in euros and they're going to be converted to US dollars. The next two records are US dollars, so there shouldn't be any conversion on those. So as I scroll over and we look at the two different gross amount columns, what we see here, if I get scrolled over, is yes, the original amounts that you see here in this column, that's the euro amount. So 113764 gets converted to 106938 US dollars. Once again, don't get hung up on the values. I know these are old currency conversion rates and not accurate as to this date, but yeah, we're seeing the mechanics of how this works. Same thing here with our 61 euros gets converted to 58 euros. But our US dollar, our 213, gets converted, no conversion necessary because the target currency is the same, US dollars. And what we see here is we had a Japanese yen, 196. Well, we didn't have a currency conversion for it. So it's at least telling us, I couldn't convert that. Here's the value, but it's still Japanese yen. So actually, if we were to do a summation on the gross amount column for anything other than US dollars at this point of the target currency, we get bad data. But once again, this is for educational purposes. It wasn't worth the time to enter tons of currency rates. You get the idea of what's possible here, and it still all works. And one of the nice things, now that we have aggregation here, we could go and start doing some aggregation. Maybe we say gross sum by product, so we can see the aggregation right away. We're saying, oh well, these are obviously products that are selling the most, or that we're buying the most of, because look, by far the aggregation is there, and we have all these nice built-in charts and graphs and things. This isn't for end user reporting, but this is what developers and admins would use to, say, test their views before they roll them out to the business, or when you're troubleshooting or things like that. And I might also come here and add a filter here, for the original currency, so that it's only US dollars and euros. So let's go ahead, USD, and so now we're only seeing USD, and let's add another one here for euro, and now we truly have accurate data. Oh, I shouldn't have done it that way. I should have done a multi-value or something like that. Yeah, in list of US dollar and euro. There we are. Now we're getting our truly accurate data, because we're only summarizing our data that has been converted to US dollars, and we got rid of those other currencies, just in case that was bothering anybody else, that our report actually had some crazy mismatch aggregation of multiple currencies. Now it's clean. But you get the idea, hopefully, of what's possible here, the power of calculation views to do aggregations, to do currency conversions, to do unit of measure conversions, and of of course, do all kinds of other custom calculations as well. We haven't shown you that in these exercises. Once again, somebody could probably do a whole series on just calculation views and go deep into all its capabilities. That isn't really the purpose of what I want to do in this learning series, but at least I've exposed you to hopefully some of the power and capabilities of calculation views.